Welcome to the third episode of Rivanna Review, a program of stories, essays, and book reviews. My name is Robert Boucheron. I will be your host for a half hour of reading excerpts aloud with illustrations. The print magazine, Rivanna Review, is published 4 times a year in Charlottesville, Virginia, on the Rivanna River. I am the editor. The magazine is available in bookstores on the Main Street Mall in Charlottesville, Second Act Books and New Dominion Bookshop, and bookstores in Winchester, Stanton, and Roanoke, Virginia. You can order a copy or a subscription from the website, rivannareview.com. Rivanna Review exists for your reading pleasure. In like manner, this program aims to be informative and entertaining. The material chosen is family-friendly, the sort of thing you can share without offending delicate ears. Contributors to the magazine live all over the world, and they write about places far and wide. In this program, we will visit small-town Illinois, Ukraine, Boston, Arizona, the South Bronx, and Italy. The magazine has notices about other publications, book sales, events, and the experience of reading. Book reviews are of titles you may not have heard about, from small presses and by authors who are not yet bestsellers. The Bank Teller, a story by Robert Sachs. She recognizes the man as soon as he pushes open the heavy steel and glass door. He had been cute back in high school, on the track team, she thinks, still tall and skinny. She had a crush on him back then. Now he's a cute guy with a gun. His mask is under his chin, as if he's forgotten to pull it up over his face, while in this, the second year of the pandemic, she is required to wear a mask. And why, she asks herself, would he bother with this small-town bank branch? Not much bigger than the ice cream shop next door. It was a saloon until the early 50s, the manager told her. The green and white striped awning out front, the big mirror on the back wall, and the art glass hanging lamps remain from that era, not your usual bank decor. She thinks this must be a joke, but the robber isn't smiling, and the gun looks real. She sees despondency in his eyes, like a child used to hunger. If he recognizes her, it doesn't show. She presses the secret button with her knee, just as the manager trained her. Don't argue, stay calm. And she follows the robber's instructions to the letter, emptying the till and opening the vault. No die packs, he warns. Well, he's not a complete idiot, she tells herself. Then comes the scary part. From a nylon backpack, he produces a roll of duct tape and 7 sticks of dynamite held together with wire. He tapes her hands behind her back. He wraps the dynamite around her waist like a corset. He tapes her legs together. There's nothing personal in this, he says. He stuffs all the money he can get his hands on in the backpack. Eddie Bauer is scrawled on the side. He sees police cars, first one, then 2 more, pull up in front of the bank. Crap, he says, realizing what she must have done. It's company policy, she says. I can't afford to lose my job. Normally, 2 people work the branch bank, but the pandemic has caused staffing problems. That's why she is alone this overcast autumn day in the little town in southwest Illinois, 3 blocks from the 1-story house she shares with her mother. That's okay, he says. It's actually good that they're here. The police chief calls the bank, and the robber picks up the phone. Don't do anything foolish, the police chief says. The robber texts the police chief a photo of the teller sitting on the floor. She is bound with duct tape and wrapped in dynamite. Don't you do anything foolish, he says by phone. I want a gassed-up car at the back door, safe conduct to the state line. If I spot a cop, or if they follow me, or put a tracking device on the car, I'll blow her up. Got it? Hearing that, she tries to scream, but only a gurgling noise comes out. "Don't," she manages to say. As he waits, the robber gets nervous. He walks between the teller's window and the vault, back and forth, over and over. Even when he stops, he isn't still. He rocks on his heels and fidgets with his shirt collar. The bank teller watches. She wonders if he's high on drugs. She thinks he'll calm down if she talks to him. Bolt, a story by Galen Pickett. We Bolts shared a mission, a purpose, a calling. Our responsibilities overlapped, aligned, crisscrossed. Each small part added up to success, the success of our machine. Some of us held the primary load, and some reinforced. We were together, all in one, but togetherness did not smother ambition. How greedily, how proudly I imagined the role I would play. As the warmth of my fabrication ebbed, I was selected from the hopper. My shank was mated to a washer, thin and round. My lovely washer, how I miss her. Then I was fitted into a tapped hole. The warmth of someone's fingers held me, twisted me gently, directed me so I did not jam. I saw the entire world revolve. It revolved around me. The fingers sent me spinning until my head was flush against washer. Still dizzy, I felt the nut being fitted to my shank, hole to tip, groove to ridge. The comforting solidity of being fixed in place was a feeling of correctness, of achievement. I knew my role, and I would perform it well. Hold tight, I said to my companions. This is going to be great. Was it hubris, an illusion born of pride? We inhabit a world where no individual self is important. So much I have learned. Back then, the collective spirit of all in one, of parts put together, sustained me. I reveled in my grasp of things. That satisfaction got me through many decades. That and the embrace of washer, our whispered confederacy. Grime dulled our bright new metal. Cold made us shrink, and heat made us swell. Water seeped into the interface of my threads, the tapped spiral of my home. No matter, I said, as long as we hold, the machine will succeed. As we went about our assigned tasks, we reassured one another. Long before our term of service ended, we would be refurbished, removed, and given a rejuvenating rest. A fabled Elysium, an industrial Arcadia awaited us. A chance to simply be, without duties or stress, to take a virgin path, or tell an untold story, or choose an occupation of our own. Withdrawn, retired, we would know peace. Washer was convinced that we would be preserved, our metals reforged and amalgamated. We would merge, glowing and cooling again, into a new life with a new purpose. How naive we were. How silly all of that seems now. Why did I think we parts had a mission? Others came and went, worn out and replaced. I saw I was like the others, ordinary, a drudge, unable to rise above my place. Over the decades, I watched the machine work. I saw its operations again and again. We traveled, the rains came and soaked us, then the sunlight dried us. My shank corroded and welded to the frame. In a great cataclysm, a part of the machine I had never seen before swung toward us. It gouged the painted surface of our workplace and sheared my hexagonal head clean off. God knows what happened to Washer. It seemed personal at the time. I protested. The machine is out to get us. After all we have done, after our lifetime of service. War in Ukraine, essay by Maxim Matusevich. On February 24, 2022, the armed forces of the Russian Federation attacked the independent nation of Ukraine. Despite the drumroll of aggressive rhetoric coming from Moscow, many of us found it hard to believe Russia would launch a full-scale war. This despite the precedent of the Cold War invasions of Hungary in 1956 and Czechoslovakia in 1968, despite the wars in Chechnya from 1994 to 2009 and in Georgia in 2008, despite the annexation of Crimea in 2014, and despite the massing of Russian troops on the eastern border of Ukraine starting in March 2021. By this collective us, I mean those born in that part of the world and therefore laboring under the illusion of understanding it. No sensible, thinking, decent human being could have harbored affection for the corrupt and thuggish regime of Kremlin kleptocrats led by Vladimir Putin. There were telltale signs of the evolving criminal nature of the regime. National treasure was plundered on a surreal scale. Dissidents were jailed or murdered. Freedom of speech was suppressed. Human rights were abused. Brutal authoritarians were claimed as friends and allies. And yet it still seemed that behind the facade of belligerence and crude nationalism, there lurked something rational. The regime had a system of patronage and kickbacks. Elites engaged in performative anti-Westernism while remaining committed to a status quo that allowed them to enjoy many privileges. They treasured their villas in France and Italy, their luxury yachts, their posh flats in London, and high-end condos in Miami and New York City. Surely they were not insane, corrupt, occasionally violent, contemptuous of liberal values, racist, misogynistic, xenophobic, but not insane. We thought we knew the type. We believed Russia's new rulers, who emerged out of the post-Soviet funk, were more concerned with acquiring Patek Philippe watches and Gucci handbags than lost territories. They might play mischief with American elections and cheat in the Olympic Games. They might plant the occasional sleeper agent in a New Jersey suburb. When push came to shove, they would value their access to the West and its creature comforts above nonsense about Mother Russia or 19th century fantasies of Slavic unity. We assumed the ravings of the Kremlin-bankrolled ultranationalists and the obvious lies which cast the Russian-speaking Jewish president of Ukraine and his Jewish defense minister as Nazis were a sick postmodern joke designed to drive up TV ratings of popular evening shows. It turns out the joke was on us. Atlas Shrugged, the Classic Illusion, an essay by Jonathan Russell Clark. I came upon Ayn Rand's 1957 novel Atlas Shrugged at the Barnes & Noble in my hometown when I was a sophomore in high school. It was the year 2000, and I was with my friend Eric Sims, a gifted artist and now producer on FX hit show Archer, but not of a literary bent. I paused to admire the sheer heft of the book, more than 1,000 pages. When I awoke the following morning, I embarked upon Atlas Shrugged, and what I found surprised me. It was a mystery. All those scientists and CEOs and engineers and philosophers around the world, the very best and brightest ones, began to disappear, suddenly and without explanation. Meanwhile, Dagny Taggart, a VP of a transcontinental railroad corporation, battles with litigators and competitors and even her own brother, the president of the company, for the right to control her company and the innovations of her love interest, Hank Rearden, who has invented a miracle metal. Dagny wants to use on her new train line. Growing up in small-town Ohio as an atheist wasn't the easiest position to be in, which meant I clung to any other non-believers I could find. Ayn Rand, I discovered early on, was also an atheist, which compounded the trust I put in this canonical work. My wrong-headedness about the literary canon stretched deeper and lasted longer than simply believing a book I hadn't read was a classic. It persisted throughout my reading of the book, regardless of what I personally experienced. At age 15, I deferred any intellectual authority to Ayn Rand, since I assumed her credentials had already been verified by decades of scholarship and agreement. This is a classic, they seemed to say, and everyone should read the classics. Why are they classics? Because they proffer meaningful themes and rich ideas. Rand's literary strategy is to employ narrative in order to demonstrate philosophical concepts. Character, plot, setting, atmosphere all serve her thesis, which the book's introduction by Leonard Peikoff makes clear. Quote, "What happens to the world when the prime movers go on strike?" Unquote. The prime mover concept is an appropriation of Aristotle's theory that a single, unchanging creator or prime mover must exist in order to explain the seemingly purposeful movement of creation. Repurposed, the technical term prime mover is an all-encompassing moniker for the hard-working creative geniuses who make the world go round. If such figures from influential thinkers to high-powered executives suddenly ceased their globe-spinning ways, what would happen? To Rand, the world wouldn't merely stop, it would collapse. Book review, Life Among the Terranauts, Stories by Caitlin Horrocks, review by Ed Meek. Horrocks knows how to construct a plot and characterize the people in her stories, and she has a sense of humor. In The Sleep, the narrator answers the question, who lives in those small towns in America that have seen better days? What kind of morons hustle for jobs that don't even pay for cable television? What kind of people spend 20 years buying beer at the Hop Inn and drinking in the Quarry, the next 30 drinking at the Points, the last sodden 10 at the Elks Lodge? Horrocks often starts a conventional story about ordinary people, but then she pushes them into the surreal. You may find this funny, or you may have a hard time sticking with a story in which an entire town hibernates during the winter. Sometimes the stories feel like exercises, as in The Untranslatables, or And Looked Down as Far as I Could. Chance Me is a story within a story about Justin, he goes by Just, who hasn't seen his biological father for 16 years. Justin comes to Boston from Arizona under the pretext that he is applying to colleges. The father, Harry, flashes back to his days in Arizona with Justin's mother, Willow, in Arcosanti, a utopian community run by the artist Paolo Soleri. Harry couldn't convince Willow to leave the community, so he abandoned her and the baby. Harry is a real estate broker with a live-in girlfriend. He wants to patch things up with his son. Wherever else his life might take him, it would not take him back there, to the red desert hills and the bleached sheet of sky snapped open every morning above them, their baby squalling in a hand-painted cardboard box. Now, that baby was sitting in his Lexus, 6 feet tall, and applying to Harvard. Horrocks can write a good line, and she is adept at assuming the voices of everyone from young men to older women and young kids. She will take on anything. One story is from the point of view of a granddaughter trying to figure out if her grandmother was a lesbian, as she is. Another story is from the point of view of an 8-year-old girl. The title story is a parody of the Biosphere 2 experiment in 1991 to 1993 in a sealed glass building near Tucson, Arizona. More publicity stunt and science, Biosphere 2 was a mock-up of a colony on Mars or somewhere in space. Horrocks' fictional Terra Nova is sadder than the real thing, despite the diverse cast of Terranauts. Book review, Reclaiming Your Community, Social Science by Majora Carter. A blend of personal history, up-to-the-minute urban history, and passionate appeal to inner-city dwellers, this book bears the subtitle, You Don't Have to Move Out of Your Neighborhood to Live in a Better One. It's a simple message, but the implications reach beyond a decision about where to live, and though it is pitched to people of color, immigrants, and those the author calls low-status communities, this is a fascinating report about a place you probably never visited, the South Bronx. Majora Carter claims to be average, yet her story shows she is anything but. Born in 1966, the youngest of 10 children of a black Pullman porter, she was raised in Hunts Point in New York City. She was a bright girl and an exceptional student. By competitive exam, she placed into the Bronx High School of Science. From there, she went to Wesleyan University, where she studied film. She earned a Master of Fine Arts in 1997 at New York University. She has won many awards, notably a MacArthur Fellowship in 2005. She is now a real estate developer, a consultant on urban issues, and owner of the Boogie Down Rhine Cafe. Carter's childhood ambition was to escape the South Bronx. That was what any ambitious, successful person would do, she says. In her 20s, in graduate school, living with her and then near her parents, she had a change of heart. She decided to make a life in the place she knew best, and to make that place support the life she wanted as a professional black woman. Subsidized low-rent housing caught Carter's attention. Instead of helping people out of poverty, these apartments massed in certain neighborhoods make their life worse. She compares the problem to the monoculture of one crop on a farm. In another metaphor, she calls the exodus of bright, educated people from the South Bronx a brain drain, like the immigration of such people from foreign countries. Without a mix of occupations and incomes living side by side, young people lack role models and mentors. Education, cited as the remedy for poverty, is not enough, just as training programs without jobs are not enough. With another pungent phrase, Carter slams the nonprofit industrial complex. Chapter 8 recounts personal experience and lessons learned about these government social service agencies, religious charities, and private foundations. Do the people who work in nonprofits have good intentions, or do they seek to perpetuate the status quo? Year after year passes and the problems remain. To blame this persistence on a culture of poverty is both false and offensive, Carter says. She wants white people to give up the idea of helping the poor. Instead, remove the legal and financial barriers, predatory lenders, Jim Crow-style arrests, and prison terms. Then black people can and will flourish. Book review: A Short History of Spaghetti with Tomato Sauce by Massimo Montanari. What is more Italian than spaghetti with tomato sauce, sprinkled with grated cheese with a glass of red wine at a table with friends? It's a hearty meal and a sensual delight. But tomatoes are not native to Italy, and pasta is an artificial substance that bears no resemblance to grains of wheat. As you dig into a steaming plate of spaghetti with tomato sauce, have you ever wondered where it came from? Massimo Montanari did. A professor of medieval history at the University of Bologna, he has long specialized in food, cooking, and the cultural rigmarole of eating. He edits the journal Food and History, and his many books include The Culture of Food, published by Europa Editions in 1993. At 100 pages, A Short History is a busman's holiday for Montanari, and as much fun to read as the subject is to eat. Let's start with pasta. At its simplest, pasta has two ingredients, wheat flour and water. Eggs are added to enrich it. Pasta can be fresh or dried, and the dried kind keeps for years, an important fact of storage in the olden days. The preferred variety of wheat is durum or semolina, hard grain rather than soft. Color comes by adding vegetables like carrots for orange and spinach for green. But Montanari is a purist. The ideal color of pasta is white. You cook pasta by boiling it, usually in water, but you can add salt, or you can use broth or milk. Bread, made from the same ingredients, is baked. In his academic way, Montanari makes much of this distinction, wet and dry. Invented in the Mideast, pasta was introduced by medieval Arabs to Sicily, a major grower of wheat. By the year 1700, it was being manufactured and exported from Palermo by sea. Macaroni, as it was generally called, became wildly popular in Naples. It spread socially from the upper class to the populace and geographically from south to north. With tobacco, chocolate, the potato, the chili pepper, and maize, the tomato arrived in Spain from America after the conquest of the 1500s. Then, and during the 1600s, the tomato was an exotic fruit. Eleonora of Toledo, wife of Cosimo de' Medici, probably imported the tomato to Tuscany, where it is recorded in 1548. After a long period of experiment in growing, cooking, and eating, tomato sauce met spaghetti in the early 1800s. Montanari finds the red sauce married to white pasta significant. A short history has much more to savor. Basta, mangiamo!